next thing we heard from this guy after flipping our passport back and forth, typing what he typed was, "You guys cannot fly." I'm just like, "Sorry, excuse you." He said, "And just so you know, the ticket is a non-refundable ticket." I'm just like, what are you even saying, Oga? Long story short, guys, you know, when this thing dawned on me that it was getting real was when that flight left us. So hey guys, welcome back to the channel. It's Chilo here once again as always. In case you're hearing noise, the windows are open. I'm using natural light to film, and so it's usually the issue with opening the windows and all that. But guys, I'm very rusty with sit down videos. For context sake, at the time that I'm doing this particular video, it's been about 3 months since I last sat down and gave you guys like a sit down video. And I was just telling myself today in church, today is Sunday, I'm like, I need to come back and give you guys this story time. Besides that, I promised you guys the full tea as to why the whole flight issue happened. But just in case you're seeing me for the first time and you're really wondering like, who is this girl and what is the promise she's trying to keep? So my name is Chioma, aka Chilo. I'm a Nigerian currently living in Canada, but I used to live in Japan for almost 6 years, and so I migrated to Canada from Japan. And the story time is definitely about our first flight, myself and my husband. When we were coming for our landing process, we were turned back at the airport and we couldn't fly till about 2 weeks later. And at the time when that thing happened, the last thing on my mind was YouTube, and that was why I promised you guys that I would sit down later and just give you guys a brief. Also, not just for story time sake or content sake, but so that you learn any lessons you can learn and prevent what can be prevented. Let's get right into this video. So guys, if you followed the relocation series, some of the things I might not have to repeat it, and some of the things will make more sense to you. But just for the story's sake now, we got our COPR last year ending, and so as at December or November, my husband actively started looking for flights to Canada. And I don't know if I've said this. I think I've said this several times. Like in every home, you know you know your strength and weakness. So my strength is I can be very meticulous in the very small things like oh, and what will we eat when we get there, what we wear, pack these, do like this. That's my strength. Well, my husband's own strength is he's very meticulous in the big things like the flights, the Airbnb. Like he's the typical airport husband. If you know that meme, you know that meme I'm talking about. So he swung into the whole airport mood, or the whole meticulous about big things mood, and started actively searching for flights. He was searching for a flight for a while. At the time, we knew that we were going to fly this year, like first quarter of this year, because that was when we knew he would be able to take some time off and come with me and do the landing process. Just in case you're wondering, like, why are you talking like that? My husband shuttles between Japan and Canada for now. He was like monitoring the price, watching the flights, Me, I sure did not know what was going on till one day he said, "Oh babe, I finally seen a flight that I booked, or I want to book, and I think it's going to be nice." I'm like, oh, no problem, you know best, like that's your strength. And so the flight was going to take us to Toronto. So the flight will pass through the US, and then from the US it will pass through a state in the US, and then from the US it will take us to Toronto. So it's just one stopover. Now my husband, being the very meticulous one, like right from that December, even though we knew the flight was going to be first quarter of the year, right from that December, my husband subscribed to newsletter of that airline, subscribed to everything. Like I got tired of hearing updates about that airline. Believe me not, I knew when they bought a new flight, I knew when they had a pilot issue. I knew that every day he's telling me, every week, baby, this airline this airline that. I was just like, oh my god, you know. So that was how much he was following this flight and following everything meticulously, even when our trip was still like a distance away or a while away. So fast forward to like, let's say a month, you know, to our trip, he became even more intense with monitoring things and just knowing everything about the flight, especially like the requirements we would need. And one thing that he kept emphasizing and he kept saying was, we on the website, they boldly wrote on the website that for you to fly with your airline, and not have any issues, you are going to either be, let's say, a US citizen, or you are a Canadian citizen or a Canadian permanent resident. So every time he brought that thing up, it was more like a conversation. So as permanent resident, it's not an issue. But gradually, it started coming up again and again. And each time he brought it up, I'm like, babe, we'll fly now. We are Canadian permanent residents. Because at the time, there was nothing else to describe us. I mean, we had our COPR, we had our visa and everything, and we're very set to fly. So fast forward to a week or 2 weeks later, I don't even know how those things work, but you guys know how you can check in ahead of your flight. Before I met my husband, fun fact, I don't used to do that check-in before flight. I go to the airport on the day of my flight. I just go early, I check in, and I wait for my flight. I had never done online check-in before. But my meticulous husband, he's like, I know it's not a big deal to some of you, but to some of us, like, we really don't mind doing things the traditional way. So I can't remember, everything that led up until a night before, but I remember what happened the night before. So a night before our flight, someone came to visit us, just like a farewell visit. Oh, I wish you guys the best, prayed for us, prayed over us, and those kind of things. So I remember when she was going down the step, my husband tapped me and was showing me something on his laptop, and in my head I'm like, oh my God, this flight thing again, this meticulousness again. So I'm just like, babe, later, let's escort her. So, but what he was showing me was that, babe, we don't have issue, we'll fly, because I'm very meticulous, like I said, in the little things. So he was trying to reconfirm with me that, see what they are saying, American citizens, because all this while he had only been telling me, but I really did not look at it, see it on the website. So when he showed me, I'm like, yeah, we shouldn't have an issue now. We are Canadian permanent residents. And so we escorted this person that came to visit us. Her husband came to pick her, and so this video, I'm not only going to tell you about how we're turned back, I'm going to genuinely tell you all the struggles and all the trials and tribulations we had to pass through before landing in Canada, guys. My husband will always say something like, social media doesn't give people full context as to what people went through. The videos that came up, or the videos you guys watch, made it look like it was just back. But back happened, yes, with getting the COPR, but with entering Canada, it was a lot. The devil really tried hard. So we went down, husband was by the door, and when we opened the door, we noticed that it was snowing. Now, why I'm like, it was snowing is because last year's winter in Japan was not so intense, and it was very shocking because it snows a lot. I'm in a city where it snows. So I remember saying, we're always teasing and saying, this global warming thing. So somewhere in my head, I'm like, this is already March, around March, and it's now that the snow want to start, but it did not really click in my head, the ripple effect of that snow that was snowing that night. I went back upstairs and my husband was trying to show me the website again, and I'm like, babe, we will fly now. What is all these things? This your crossing of T's and dotting of I's. What they go to too much now? I was like, we will fly. And then he said, okay, he wants to try to check us in before the flight the next morning. I know our flight was for 4 something p.m. the next day, but our Shinkansen was for 12 something because I was carrying frozen food with me. If you watch the vlogs, you know this. So we tried checking in. We passed so many stages, reaching the last stage. There was a hitch with trying to click that last button, and so he went back and forth. I was just like, what, just chill. Me being the traditional person that is even used to doing check-in at the airport, I was like, it's really not so much of a big deal. How about we just go to the airport tomorrow, and when we reach there, we just do the actual normal traditional check-in? And he was like, okay, but it's strange. Why? I'm like, let's go to the airport and check in. It's not that deep. We slept, woke up the next morning, travel mood, energy mood, we're in that mood. I remember that particular day, my immediate family, I don't know how to call it now. Is it immediate? Is it extended? My family, we're doing a 3 days midnight prayer. My mom, my siblings were always called. So 12 midnight, someone will call, and then all of us will join in and we will break the prayer. So that was the last day of the prayer. I remember we're so busy in the background, so I was just saying amen, amen. And towards the end of the prayer, my mom had brought it up that, oh, you people should not forget that today is Chioma and her husband's flight to Canada. This is a new beginning. And my brother was the one that closed that prayer that day. I remember my elder brother, he just kept speaking words of life. God will go ahead of you. God would help you people. This is a new phase, but you got to make it easy. In my head, I was just like, you guys, I beg, we are running late. Our target was to get to Tokyo at least 1:01 so that we'll check in and then we'll meet the 4 p.m. bus. And that 12 was also a very good time so that the food will not melt between 12 and that 4 and then the flight itself. So around, was it 10 or so, he started, I can't even remember now. He started looking for Uber. Our plan, our original plan, if you know how Uber works, you know that there's Uber XL, normal Uber, or you can choose the kind of Uber you want. And so we had planned the previous night that we're going to use Uber XL because, do you know what relocation is? And we can pack, and you won't even blame me. For me, it was relocation. For him, it was, shuttling, helping me settle in, and then he will go back and visit and all those things. So I had packed like I'm going to my new home, that kind of thing. So it was 2 very big boxes, 2 medium-sized boxes, hand carried. It was a lot. So we knew we needed Uber XL. My husband went on Uber app. He could not see Uber XL, and that is where the snow had a negative effect. Now, you know that weather actually affects so many things. And if you've watched, there's a video I did about winter and all those things. You know that in winter period, you have to change your tire, you have to change this. So sometimes what actually happens is that maybe some people they don't have that strength for all those things because the snow actually was very, very unpredicted. Like everybody thought we're done with snow season. So I'm just imagining that what happened was everybody just said, I beg. So we did not see Uber XL. That's my point. At that point, we're now in our Zebu mood, our warrior mood. And hubby was like, you know what, let's just use two normal Ubers, convoy it to the Shinkansen station. So he will be in front with the 2 big boxes. I'll be behind with the 2 medium-sized boxes. I'm like, okay, no problem. On reaching the station, the first thing my husband noticed was the station was crowded. It was packed. And then he just kept saying, what's going on? It's like high school children are doing something, because it's very normal in Japan when high school children are doing like excursion or something. What they will usually do is maybe have traffic wardens, or it just makes everywhere very busy for their excursions. So that was the first thing that came to his mind. I was like, this has nothing to do with high school. I'm not seeing any uniform. There's no high school vibe going on here. This has everything to do with trains are delayed. And this has something to do with the snow, the weather. And you know that speed train really works very closely with weather forecast, unlike the subway trains. So like when there's a strong wind, especially for a country like Japan that is very prone to those kind of things. So our luck, and this is where the traditional me came to play and helped us. Usually my husband will want to do things online. On the day of the trip, he just book Shinkansen online. I remember when I was telling him, let's go and book a normal ticket the previous day, collect the hard copy, hold it in our hand. So thankfully, luckily for us, we already had a hard copy, like an actual printed out ticket. So we did not have to stay on that queue because the queue was long. But even the trains were late. So he went to the traffic guys or the train security people and was like, we have a flight to catch by 4 something. And the man was like, the current train that just landed was the train for 8 something a.m. And at the time, this was already like 10 something a.m. or almost 11. So he's like, if you're going to wait till your actual train comes, people might be here till your flight too. So what he would advise, since we already have, not like we are cheating the system, since we already have the actual ticket, just run and enter the train that is on ground. Guys, come and see us running. We were running, like we're panting. And mind you, those 2 biggest boxes, very, very big box, one of them, the tire was not good. So it was a lot. We finally made it to the train. We're feeling like warriors. We're like, today, not today. The devil will not try this thing. We entered the train and guys, we were panting. I'm not even going to lie. We're like, we're panting. After like few minutes, we kind of like settled in and, calmed down. Definitely, we didn't have to select seat or anything. We just sat on the available seat because this was not our actual train. Few minutes into the ride, I remember like my mood was just here and there. Like I wasn't really very myself or bubbly on that day, and hobby was like trying to cheer me up, but I was not having it. He tried and tried, and then because at the time he was like, okay, is it because I'm leaving, like this is tentatively like my permanent move? And if you guys watch my leaving Japan, you know I have a sentimental attachment to Japan. So he was like, is that why my mood is down? I should cheer up, you know, just the same way I did not know about Japan and then I got used to Japan. It's the same way I might not know so much about Canada and then I would like get used to it. To me, I was like, I don't even know, but I'm just a bit like, I don't know, my energy is shallow or high, but yeah, maybe it's that, maybe I don't know. 30 minutes to our arrival in Tokyo, I said, let me go and use the washroom because I know that when we reach now, it's just going to be back to back till we check in. I went to use the washroom and lo and behold, Mrs. Red was there. Guys, you know what Mrs. Red is. So I was so surprised. So that could be linked to why my energy was really low. I was so surprised because I remember vividly when my husband booked that flight with Mrs. Red in mind. I remember him saying, oh, the reason I booked this flight is because you should be fine, and then when we reach it might come. So he booked it in mind. So I was very like annoyed because I know that it comes with cramps. Like for me, it comes with cramps. So I was already thinking, how am I going to fly with pain, like for how many hours trip, new land, new country where you need to be strong and support each other? I immediately sent him a message. I'm like, please help me bring, you know, all the barrier things and all, because I knew, you know, as a woman, a week to your body starts giving you signs. So I already knew that, okay, it was on the way, but definitely not that day. So I already had those things in my bag, my backpack and everything. So I told him to help me bring it. He was also surprised, like, I don't understand. Like, is he stressed? Like, it came out earlier. Immediately reached. So I usually don't like to take drugs for it because I don't know, I just like to wait it out with hot water bottle, drink water, lemon tea, all those things, natural stuff. I don't like to take drugs, but because of for that particular trip sake, I'm like, you know what, immediately we land Tokyo, I have to buy water in vending machine and drink paracetamol. I had paracetamol too in my waist bag. Immediately we landed Tokyo, I say we're in our warrior mood, bought water, took the drugs, started going to Haneda Airport. We finally reached Haneda Airport and I was fine. You know, I had taken paracetamol. My own doesn't kick in immediately. So that paracetamol was more like a preventive, you know, method. So we're trying to check in, self-check-in counter, like those whole machines. We had put name, put passport number, address, because we had already booked Airbnb or paid for Airbnb, put phone number, we had a virtual phone number, everything. Then we got to a point where it was not moving again, which is almost the same issue we were having when we're trying to do self-check-in at home. So we called one of the airline staff. I'm like, when my husband was like, this thing is not moving, and she's like, oh, Canada, oh, go for counter checking. So immediately she said, oh, Canada, I was like, oh, maybe it's anybody flying to Canada kind of thing. We went to the counter, we're even just chatting, dropped our passport for the guy. He was doing his thing. Myself and hubby was chatting. He was just checking in on me. How are you feeling? I hope you're fine. I'm like, for now I'm chill. Just, of course, my energy is not that, you know, but I'm chill. The next thing we heard from this guy, after flipping our passport back and forth, typing what he typed, was, you guys cannot fly. I'm just like, sorry, excuse you, like, sorry, excuse you, we can't fly, how? He was like, you guys cannot fly. And I'm just like, what are you even saying? He's like, so because, like I told you guys, the airline has to pass through the US, he's like, we need a transit visa. And I'm like, there was nowhere on your website that was mentioned. You didn't even send an email. Myself and my husband are frequent travelers, and this is not trying to boast or anything. And I remember anytime I use Qatar going back to Nigeria, even me that is a Nigerian, Qatar would always send an email at least a week to your trip telling you, check for all the requirements. This is what you need. Like, there's always that second verification with every passenger, because that's a lot of money you've spent, and preparing for a trip is not cheap either. So I was there like saying, no, on your website, you people said American citizens, Canadian citizens, and Canadian permanent residents, and we are permanent residents. The guy was like, talking about that, so we are not yet identified as that till we have have our card. And so because we don't have our card, they can't even do anything. I'm just like, what are you saying? That's why we are going. We need to go there, do the process, and get the card. Like, we are Canadian permanent residents. The next thing, we pulled out our COPR. And what was even annoying me the most was the guy was one of the most unempathetic, if there's an English word, human being I have ever met. The way he was just saying no, you're not going to fly. He was saying it like, I'm talking of flights of thousands of dollars. You know what it means to book a round trip for 2 people from Japan, that is very far from everywhere in the world, to Canada. And at the time, it was round ticket for me too, because I hadn't gotten a job, and the plan was that I would just do landing process and then come back to Canada. So in my head, I'm just like, what is this guy saying? And he said, and just so you know, the ticket is a non-refundable ticket. I'm just like, what are you even saying, Olga? And what was even annoying was my cramps started to kick in. So I was very, very agitated. I'm just like, what are you even saying? And he was so unempathetic. We were asked to speak to a higher authority. He called his supervisor. The woman came, typed what she typed, to said the same thing. And just like, there's nobody that you can apportion blames to here. My husband, like, God, honestly speaking, if my husband was not that meticulous, I might start to feel like, baby, you booked this flight, you should have known this. But knowing firsthand how meticulous he had been several months before the trip, the week of the trip, weeks before the trip, I was like, we kept checking this website. We even know how many new airline people have bought in the past how many months. And we did not see anything. You didn't even send an email. You didn't mention anything. Nothing. The only thing that we kept seeing was American citizens, Canadian citizens, and Canadian permanent residents. That is what is bully. The guy was like, he doesn't know that is this thing. That worst case, that guy was not empathetic, and that's the thing that is still vexing me. That worst case scenario, if we must enter, then we should go and book Air Canada. That Air Canada has a flight that evening. I'm just like, wait a minute, hold up. This particular flight that you're telling us that we cannot enter, mind you guys, we reached this airport by around 1:30 something. Our flight was for 4 something. So all this was going on within 1 something and before the flight. So I'm just like, this is a flight we booked months before, and it still cost us thousands of dollars. And here you are telling us to book Air Canada on the spot, because he was like, Air Canada will not transit through any place. It takes us, so we don't have an issue entering Canada. The main issue is because we're going to transit through the States, we needed a transit visa. I'm just like, we can't even book Air Canada now, because that is you booking a flight, 2 people on the spot. That would be thousands of dollars, and this is for another thousands of dollars that is still hanging with 2 people. The relocation, everything, we had booked things, Airbnb, bought things, and you're telling us to go and throw another thousands of dollars. My husband, being in the meticulous and airport husband mood, was already even checking on his phone. Air Canada flight, we saw that Air Canada had a flight for 6 something that evening, and I'm looking at him like, we are not even going to do an Air Canada flight now. Air Canada was almost charging almost $10,000, more than $8,000 if I'm not mistaken, for that flight to join them in the evening. I'm just like, as we want to go and throw $8,000 or $9,000, and then this one they are saying is non-refundable. I'm just like, no, guys. At that point, my husband called his close friend in the States. The friend was helping to call all the authorities he knows in America to confirm if there's something that can be done. What I was doing, we're just going in circles. My husband was making calls, I was making calls. We're trying to just find help, because that flight, we were like, this flight cannot live without us. And the guy was just throwing the same words. It's a non-refundable ticket, or you go and join Air Canada, or you go and apply for transit visa. Long story short, guys, you know when this thing dawned on me that it was getting real was when that flight left us. It was painful. It was painful. Like, a flight you came early, pass through all the protocols, all the obstacles, the snow, Uber, cramps, everything just to be there. And then the flight leaves you. That was when it dawned on us that this thing has happened. There's nothing that can be done. The flight has left us. So at that point, Hobby was like, you know what? First things first, let's even talk about this transit visa thing. We even forgot Airbnb. It was his friend that even reminded him that, guy, you people even have to cancel this Airbnb, because that's another money hanging. Because we had booked Airbnb for 2 weeks in Canada. This Airbnb, we took our time, found it was so clean, so nice, close to the airport. we need to book, we need to cancel the Airbnb. Hobby chatted the host, like the person that we're already in communication with, about, oh, where did you drop the key, what's the address, we will be landing in the next time, how many days or how many hours, just to all those kind of things. Chatted the guy and relayed our condition to him. I remember telling him that just so that this thing doesn't sound like we are just sitting and making excuses, that you booked someone's Airbnb and now you're making excuses, how about you attach screenshots to the message as evidence that this is our truth, like this is actually our reality. So because the airline people had advised that if we just left the ticket without canceling it, it would be a case of no show, meaning that you did not show up to the airport. And so when you were trying to argue about the money or the ticket price or all those other things that we were planning to do, there will be no grounds for you to do that, because it would be that you did not show up at the airport. But if it is a case of you cancelled, it means something happened, you were at the airport, like it's not a case of no show. And so you have like legal grounds, not legal grounds, you have like legitimate grounds to try to argue or figure out what to do with the credit of the money. Like they call it credit, money that you did not use, they call it credit. So they had cancelled the ticket, and so Hobby had received an email with cancellation of ticket that showed that the ticket had been cancelled. So he got a screenshot of that particular email, sent it to the host as evidence that, see, this is our situation. And the guy was like, okay, that no problem. But according to Airbnb policy, because this is someone's property that you have held down, they have to take $100 refundable policy, something like that. So that's how another money left. And then I remember Airbnb asking Hobby, do you want, because now they removed their $100, so what will be left? They were asking, do you want us to send it to your bank account, because Hobby paid using his card, and so I think his account is linked to the card. So do you want us to send the money to your account, or do you want us to hold it as credit? Credit being that you have not yet used it, so whenever you decide you can come back and use it, we'll hold it for you. So Hobby asked me, and I'm like, Omo, let's keep it as credit, because with the way money was leaving our body that period, I was like, it's just best they hold the credit, because I don't want a situation whereby they refund the money to their account or our account, and the next thing we're now talking about, we have used the money, we have touched the money, and then we start seeing other things as priority over where we will stay. I don't want us going to a new land and then we are stranded. So he told them to hold it as credit. So they agreed to hold it as credit, removed their money, and that was when we say, let's sit down at this airport and face our current reality, which is that we did not fly, we are not flying, we need to apply for a transit visa. I say, whether it's transit visa of 1 hour, or whether it is a normal visiting visa, US, you will still fill the S-160 form. So, and that DS-160, because I've gone before now, Hobby knows, because he's the one that helps me fill that form, is a lot. So I said, let's even start now, because my idea, or what I was thinking, was Japan, not many people travel out, they don't really travel a lot. So I was like, if we can even get, because that day was a Wednesday, or was it a Tuesday? I can't remember vividly, but Tuesday or Wednesday. I was like, if we can see a date in the embassy for the next day, which was Thursday, then we can book a hotel instead of going back. So I was like, instead of us to start going back again, coming back again for the visa appointment, then we can lodge. But if we don't get a date that is closed, then we have to go back to our city, sadly, because the money you're spending on hotel, buying food, you could as much just gone back to your house and then stay there and wait for it. So that was with guys who were at that airport, cramps, so hunger, anger, pain, emotional hurt, everything. We're processing it and using all the anger, channeling all the anger to fill in the S-160 form. We filled that form. You guys know how that form is if you filled it before. It's a lot. We filled the form to book for the visa. Paid. You have to pay for the appointment. Paid for it. And by the time we finished booking that thing, it was already like 1 a.m. We were at the airport using airport Wi-Fi. That was how intense this thing was. Finally, the dates was the next week Monday, which is how many days. That was when it dawned on us that we had to go back to our city, because we cannot just stay in Tokyo, pay for hotel, buy food, just to wait till Monday. So we left with the first train out of Haneda Airport around 5 a.m. or to 6. Got to our city, guys. We were so sad. Then I think the next 2 days, so we called the airline because we wanted to rectify. By non-refundable, do you mean you can't give us the cash, but we can still book with the credit? Or what? We called them and told them this is us. We called our ticket, explained what happened, and we're trying to find out if we can book another flight using the money. And these guys were like, they can't even conclude this conversation yet with us till we get the visa approved. So we went for the visa appointment on Monday, and they told us that we'll get the visa at most the ending of that week. So the following Monday we went there. Friday was when our visa came to us. We called this airline again, and they were like, you know what, that yes, the credit, since it was not a no-show thing, the credit is still with them, but we are going to, instead of us paying for that flight at the December fare rate, we are going to be paying for the flight as if you're booking for emergency. Like, I mean, we wanted to fly the next 2 days or next few days because now we have our visa. So that means, let's say the ticket you bought before was, let's say, $3,000, for example. If that ticket is now selling for $6,000, you have to reimburse them extra $3,000 on top of that $3,000 to fly. So that's the only way you can use that credit, but you have to add it, guys. What we're now seeing as price, we were seeing like crazy prices for that week, because keep in mind, we have already spent more than 1 week, almost 2 weeks applying for visa, waiting for visa appointment, getting our visa, right? Hobby took only 1 month off. We finally saw a ticket, and they needed us to like add, what did they call it? They needed us to add thousands of dollars again on that money. We finally topped up the money, paid for the flight, and we're ready to fly the following week, Tuesday or so. So it was we spent almost 2 weeks before we could fly. And you would think the story has ended there. No, sorry to burst your bubble. Story still there for front. We reached the airport. I got to the airport. I was like, thank you, Jesus. Checked in, no issue. We had our transit visa. We went on board. Like, mind you, we now had to book another Airbnb for 2 weeks again, because that other host we're going to use said the house was no longer up. Someone else had gotten the house. I mean, I won't blame him. He won't tie down his property for us. So this second one we booked, we had to book was something that entered the money they had. So the budget had shrunk because they took their $100. So what we were seeing, so we're not seeing something close to the airport. What we were seeing within that budget they had with them. And we didn't even want to scrutinize it too much because, God, we were exhausted emotionally. We just booked what we saw, and we're like, at least we have a house or like have a place that we are going to like lay our heads when we first land. So we now flew, and then we landed. I think we passed through, is it New Jersey? Now let me backtrack with you guys a bit. A week before our initial flight, Hobby traveled for something official, right? And he landed. The first thing he told me was, babe, my box is missing. I'm like, I don't understand. We have a trip in the following week. Box is already missing. This is a box missing with so many things inside of it. So when he came back, true to his word, they didn't find the box. So he came back without that box. We had to find another box, replace some of the things there, this and that and that. He even came back sick because he got malaria. Like, see guys, the devil tried really hard. Thankfully, he got better before our first initial flight. So why did I give you this background story? Now, when we were about to fly this second flight, the airline had reached out to him that they have seen the box. So they sent the box to Haneda. So instead of us flying with 4 boxes, we're flying with 5 boxes this time. So we had more load because the bus came to Haneda. We had to find a way to balance out the weight and carried it as hand carriage. Now, when we now landed in America, we came down from the plane. So because the flight was a fully booked flight, they asked all passengers to please like keep your boxes as even your hand carriage, check it in, but that one is on them. So we checked everything in, even the box that we were supposed to carry as hand carriage. When we reached New Jersey, guys, usually I've been transiting for a while. When you're transiting, they give transiting passengers. I thought they would give transiting passengers priority because we landed New Jersey, had only 1 hour 30 minutes before the connecting flight to Toronto, and because the flight already left Tokyo late, we landed 30 minutes late, so we had only 1 hour to the connecting flight. We now started waiting for all 5 boxes because they said you must check in everything again, pass everything through security, pass yourself through security. I'm just like, usually when you're transiting, you collect your box at the final location. Like example, when I was going from Nigeria to Japan, I didn't see my box in Doha. It's when I reached Tokyo, I saw my box. That's how I know transiting. But then the policies in US are different, and I'm not here to fault them for their policies, right? But then I also thought they would give transiting passengers priority, more like, okay, transiting passengers that have picked their boxes, stay on this line so that, keep it moving because the flight will not wait for you. So we're waiting. First box, second box. Now we don't have 4 boxes, we have 5. Third, fourth, time is going. We have only 1 hour. Before we collected all 5 boxes, passed the 5 boxes through security, kept the 5 boxes, then went to now stand on the queue for us. And this is a fully booked flight. So both those that New Jersey was their last location and those that were transiting, the line was long. You pass through dog to smell you, pass through these. We now finally reached the place for searching your backpack. I passed. My husband did not pass because he had 2 laptops. He had a bigger bag, so he had one of my laptops, his laptop, headphone. This, so I think the electronics and their waves, they held him down before they could finish that one. This guys, it was a lot. So by the time we finished with all those shenanigans, we had just about, the flight was supposed to leave New Jersey to Toronto 6 p.m. We were done with all these things around 5:50. Come and see us running. We're running. We ran, got to the boarding gate. We could still see the flight, right? Because it was 5:50. And this airline, one thing with airlines, when you're connecting flights, the passenger is around. It's not as if you don't know. We are around. So you know that it is not us delaying. It is the policies of the airport or the country that is delaying us. We reached and these people told us that we cannot join the flights. Hey, God. I was looking at them. Mind you, I had a job interview the next day. God, I beg. I had a job interview the next day. We were there speaking English, spray. That flight left us. They now said that we cannot go to Toronto till the next day, 24 hours later, 6 p.m. the next day. Don't forget, guys, I had frozen food in that bag. The story is just all over. I don't think I'll ever get to a point where I can narrate this story and it will make full sense. There was this frozen food suffered because even that first cancelled flight, all the while we were at the airport filling forms, booking visa, frozen food was in our box. Before this flight was cancelled, while all these things was happening, I was still in my warrior mood. I was strong. I was everything. But the minute that this connecting flight left us again, it felt like, what is going on? The first thing I just said was, God, what is this? What is all this frustration? What is all these challenges? It was very, very painful. But then again, I had a job interview the next, and this is me who has been looking for a job full-time, desperately, getting close, not getting it. So I was not at that point where I wanted to let go of an interview. So it was very, very painful, very, very painful. But there was nothing we could do about it. I started crying. I was very angry. I was so sad. We finally went to the hotel, slept. The next day, thankfully, we're able to pull out, we're able to insist and retract that box that had a food, because they were the box did not go to Toronto without us. So we're give us one of the boxes because there's something in that box. We took the box. When we went to the hotel, thank God for favor, I was able to convince one of the restaurant people to help us put the food in a deep freezer. Guys, the things we went through. The next day, we went to the airport and then we finally flew. Guys, it was so painful. We reached Toronto, did the whole process, and that was when the reality of all the ripple effect of that one cancelled flight started to dawn on us. Now remember I said the first Airbnb, we calmed down and selected the place because we wanted a place near the airport, everything. If I hear this second place, we were not that particular, we were just emotionally exhausted. So by the time we traveled to where the new Airbnb was, we ended up paying for that Uber. We spent almost $100 on that Uber. It was that far from the airport where we booked. We didn't even know, we just booked it, right? Guys, we entered this house. This house was very dirty. You know that kind of dirty house that you cannot even bath in the bathroom. Like we're doing our body like this, our body will not touch the wall. Hey God. Minus the dirtiness of the house. The kitchen, the host we're trying to use the kitchen, and she said, oh, we can't even use the kitchen. I say, because I mean, I cannot bring food all the way from Japan, food that have seen valley and ocean with me. First cancelled flight, second cancelled flight, 2 trips cancelled, and now you're telling me I cannot use the kitchen. Guys, we booked Airbnb for 2 weeks, ended up staying there for only 2 nights because this thing was killing our joy, killing our energy. We're not happy, we're so sad. We'll go out hungry because you can't cook. We buy food from all this fast food, you're not satisfied. We now had to book another Airbnb for extra 1 week, and this girl refused to refund us. Finally, we had to fight this thing, like really fight it through Airbnb, but this was almost 1 week or 2 weeks later. But when we were booking the second Airbnb, our money was still hanging 2 weeks in that Airbnb. It's just a lot. Like when we went to the new Airbnb, on our way there, because of just how sad, messy, frustrated we were, came down, and we realized that my husband had forgotten his backpack in the Uber. Inside that backpack had our COPR, our international passport, our marriage certificate. Hey God, guys, the temptation that we saw, I was already almost crying. The Airbnb guy, because he had come to open the door for us, and thankfully he's a Nigerian, so he was trying to help us call Uber, try to know what's going on. Thank God for God. As we were panicking upstairs, we heard the bell, went down. It was the Uber guy that said he noticed that we forgot our backpack. I'm like, thank God. My fear was not the Uber guy doing anything. My fear was, what if he doesn't notice it and then he picks someone up who will now in turn open the bag, laptop was inside, and do something crazy. So we're just so grateful that God helped him to notice the bag before he picked up another client. We were there for a week. I was applying, guys. It's a lot. The main purpose of this video is not to just run. It's been 3 months now. At the time I'm making this video since this thing happened, but I just wanted to spread the information to anybody that cares to listen. If you're transiting through the US, please do your due diligence. If you need to apply for a transit visa, I beg you, apply before you get to the airport. You do not want to go through this frustration that we went through, but we did not know, we did not envision it. And even another thing that is paining me, I remember when we were at that airport, and that guy that is not empathetic, he was like, oh, I can see you have a US visa. You guys know I was in the US last year. If your visa was still valid now, you could have joined. And I'm like, I don't understand. So me, I will enter and I will leave my husband. What are you even saying? Make it make sense. Guys, please, if the website is not doing justice, if your guts, honestly, I feel like all this while my husband was double checking, it was his guts feeling. If your guts feeling is telling you that something is wrong, you need to confirm. Please put a call across to the airline and confirm that you have all the requirements before your travel day, because that thing is not just frustrating emotionally, it's frustrating financially, it's frustrating physically, it's frustrating because it's fine. This is 3 months later. By God's grace, we've bounced back from everything that happened, and we are just grateful to God for sustenance, because God will not call you to a journey that he will not provide grace for, and he has just been very graceful towards us. And that's it. Thank you guys so much for watching. This is a very long video. I hope I'll be able to edit it to a point where it's not too long. But please, in case you're watching this video, this is not the time to cast stones on any airlines. I don't like drama. I've just not been a dramatic person all my life, and I'm not about to learn it. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. See you next time on Chilotalks. Bye for now, guys.